Hi, I'm Kenzie. I'm 23 years old and I have autism. So the other day I was taking a trip down memory lane and thought, hey, why not make a podcast about one of my favorite game shows from my childhood? And then I thought, hey, what a great idea. So here I go. We're going to take a look at my favorite episodes from Blue's Clues by VHS tapes. Each VHS tape has 2 episodes and we will talk about them. Each episode will have a title, a question about what Blue wants to do, the 3 clues, an answer to the question to what Blue wants to do, and even some themes to what the children learn throughout. So without further ado, let's get started. The first VHS is called Arts and Crafts. This VHS includes adventures in art and what does Blue want to make. First, let's talk about Adventures in Art. This episode starts out with Steve in his paint shirt because he and Blue were, of course, painting pictures. Steve was painting a picture of Blue herself, and Blue was painting birds. Now, Steve thought she was done with her painting, but Blue disagreed. She wanted to paint something else. The question was, what else does she want to paint? That's when she wanted to play Blue's Clues, which is my favorite game. Now, each episode had Steve cleaning off the paw print. In this case, he cleaned off the paw print with his paint shirt. Now, of course, we all know Blue's paw prints would be on the clues. Blue's Clues. Also, we needed our handy-dandy notebook for Blue's Clues. You know, to draw the clues so we can remember them. Sign table drawer always has it. And so, the game Blue's Clues has begun. Our first clue is a door. After we find the first clue, Steve goes outside and finds Blue with a shabby wagon. It turned out she just wanted to give the wagon a new coat of paint, but we needed the same colors. That's when Steve asked the viewer for help finding the colors. The problem was, we didn't have the colors we needed, like pink and orange. So we learned to make colors by mixing 2 of them together. Of course, this is just one lesson. Kids learn a lot more than this. After we make pink and orange, we also make green, light blue, and purple. So Blue now has a wagon that is light blue with green and purple polka dots, pink wheels, and an orange handle. After that was done, Blue skidoos into the felt frame. That's where we meet the felt friends, Freddie and Fifi. They wanted to get to the island on a sailboat. The problem was the sailboat was not big enough for them, so they decided to make a bigger one out of different shapes, with a little bit of help from us, of course. We needed shapes for the bottom of the sailboat, the mast, and the sail. We learned the semicircle is the shape for the bottom. Also, a bunch of squares together makes a long rectangle for the mast, and a triangle and a trapezoid together makes a big triangle for the sail. After that success, the viewer finds the second clue, which is a window. Afterwards, it's mail time. Mailbox is the best in bringing in the mail, by the way. He and Steve even have the most interesting conversations. One of them was when Mailbox noticed a paw print on the window. Steve tells him it was one of Blue's clues, in which Mailbox replies, "What a lucky window." He then proceeds to give Steve a letter, which is from our friends. Now, Steve's friends do the most interesting things. In this case, they were doing something crafty with clay. They made a snowman made from clay, which was pretty cool. After saying goodbye, we find Blue skidooing again into a picture of a museum. And so Steve does too, just to follow her and maybe even find the third clue. When he skidooed into the museum, he exclaimed, "Wow, a museum!" There were so many works of art, paintings, sculptures, and drawings. There were even pictures of Magenta getting into the process of painting a picture of a barn with a little chick. That's when the little chick pops out of one of the pictures and tells us that the pictures were all out of order and they don't tell much of a story. That's when we decided to help him. As we do that, we learn to not only look at what Magenta is painting, but also look at the weather. You will notice in the first picture, Magenta starts to paint a picture on a sunny day. Then in the next picture, it gets a little cloudy out, but she paints a barn on a hill. In the next picture, it gets even more cloudy out, but she paints a little chick in the barn. In the final picture, it starts to rain, but Magenta finishes the painting. And that's the end of the story. After that success, the viewer finds the third clue, which is a roof. That's when Steve found out we had all 3 clues, and it was time to sit in the thinking chair. Now, if any of you don't know what a thinking chair is, it's basically a red armchair that's really comfortable. Anyway, at that time, it was time to think. We were trying to figure out what else Blue wants to paint in her picture, and our clues were a door, a window, and a roof. Now, sometimes Steve would give out a wrong answer before the viewer gives out the right one. Steve guessed a car, which was wrong. The viewer guessed a house, which was right. Blue wanted to paint a house with a door, a window, and a roof. At that point, Steve realized we just figured out Blue's clues. After the celebratory song, Blue decides to paint a house in her picture. Now, usually at the end of each episode, all the characters that were in the episode come back to show kids what they remember doing. The paint drops come back to remind us that we mixed colors. The felt friends come back to remind us of the sailboat we made. And the chick comes back to remind us of the museum and the fact that the picture that Blue painted might tell a story. After a fun day, it was time to say so long, but sing just one more song. That's what Steve usually does after every episode. Then Steve says goodbye, the door closes, and Blue says goodbye. That's how the episode ends. Now let's talk about the episode as a whole. I feel like kids can learn a lot in this episode if they want to learn about art. All in all, it's a good episode. Now let's talk about what does Blue want to make. This episode starts out with Steve telling us that he and Blue were making newspaper hats. I know, people were very creative in the 90s. I believe they still are. Anyway, Steve asked Blue if she wanted to make more newspaper hats, but she says no. Steve was a little disappointed at first, but he got over it. So the question was, what does Blue want to make? That's when she wanted to play Blue's Clues. But first, Steve had to clean the paw print off. To do that, he used his newspaper hat to clean it off. I'm telling you, pretty creative if you ask me. And so the game Blue's Clues has begun. Our first clue is yarn. After Steve ponders over what Blue wanted to make with yarn, he hears Mr. Salt and Mrs. Pepper shouting out random crafty items. It turns out they wanted to make a macaroni picture frame to go with their new portrait. We wanted to help. The problem was they were missing a couple of pieces to finish the patterns. Our job was to figure out which piece fits the pattern. The first pattern consisted of blue shells and yellow wagon wheels. The second pattern consisted of purple, blue, and green macaroni. Now this part was funny. Every time Steve said blue, he would hear Blue bark. At least he thought he would. Then Mr. Salt and Mrs. Pepper thanks us for helping and puts the frame on the fridge, in which they exclaim, voila! I mean, it makes sense. They are French after all. Now the macaroni picture frame along with the portrait were cool. After we applauded their work, it's mail time. Mailbox comes in with a newspaper hat of his own, which Blue made for him. We find some of our friends making newspaper hats themselves. What's even cooler is that they take us through this step by step so that the viewers at home can make one themselves. After saying goodbye, the viewer finds the second clue, which is buttons. 2 of them. Afterwards, we hear the Fell friends. They figured we needed our last clue to figure out what Blue wants to make. Speaking of making things, the Fell friends told us excuse me, that they were making masterpieces. We wanted to help. Our job was to guess from their shapes what their picture was going to be. They make a sunflower and an ice cream cone. Now let me tell you, the sunflower looked beautiful and the ice cream cone looked delicious. Afterwards, Steve smells something really good and wonders what it was. It smelled like something baking. It turned out it was coming from the bakery, which Blue just skidooed to. Steve decided to go too. Once he got closer to the smell, he found out that it smelled like bananas. Now if you grew up watching Blue's Clues, you know that Steve's favorite food is bananas. He loves bananas. He loves anything that has banana in it. As it gets even closer to the smell, we are introduced to bowl and spatula. They needed help making a banana cake. Steve loves banana cake. It's his favorite. Anyway, our job was to follow the recipe for banana cake. The recipe was 2 cups of flour, 1 cup of sugar, 2 eggs, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, a dash of salt, and 3 bananas. Pretty impressive, huh? After looking at the recipe, we got the ingredients. There were some ingredients that didn't even go in banana cake. I mean, strawberries in a sock? Who'd have thought? Anyway, after getting all the ingredients, we needed to figure out how much we needed of each one to mix in bowl to make banana cake. To figure that out, we needed to look at the recipe. First, we cracked 2 eggs. Then we used the big measuring cup to measure 1 cup of sugar and 2 cups of flour. Then we used the little teaspoon to measure 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Then we added 3 bananas. Then Mr. Salt came in to put in a dash of salt. Finally, we mixed it all up, poured it into a pan, and then it was time to bake it. Spatula said that she and Bull would bring in the cake when it was done. After we said thank you and see you later with that cake, Blue skidooed back home and Steve was about to do the same thing, but he slipped on the sock. At the time, it was embarrassing for him, but looking back on it, I had to say it was pretty funny. Excuse me, sorry. A little. That's when the viewer noticed the third clue, which is a sock. That's when Steve found out we had all 3 clues, and it was time to sit in the thinking chair. It was time to think. We were trying to figure out what Blue wants to make, and our clues were yarn, 2 buttons, and a sock. At first, Steve thought Blue wanted to button up her sock with yarn, but that was wrong. Then he thought that maybe the buttons on the sock could be like eyes, and the yarn could be like hair. That's when the viewer guessed correctly that Blue wants to make a sock puppet. She wants to use the sock as the puppet, the yarn for the hair, and the 2 buttons for the eyes. At that point, Steve realized we just figured out Blue's clues. After the celebratory song, it was time to make sock puppets. During the process of making the sock puppet, Mr. Salt and Mrs. Pepper come back to remind us that we helped them with the macaroni picture frame. The thought friends were making a picture of a sock puppet, which Steve's own sock puppet wanted to see. And Bowl and Spatula come back with a banana cake like they promised to bring. It was a regular puppet making party, Steve says. After a fun day, it was time to say so long, but sing just one more song. The sock puppet decided to sing along too. That's how the episode ends. Now let's talk about the episode as a whole. I feel like kids can learn a lot in this episode if they want to learn about making things. All in all, it's a good episode. So yeah, that's arts and crafts. If you would like to play again, just go back to the beginning of this episode. I will be making more of them in the near future. Well, thank you so much for listening. And remember, you can do anything that you want to do. Bye!